With the rising number of coronavirus cases in the United States, the drop in the stock market, and more people staying at home, not participating in the economy, economists are warning that we could be headed toward a recession. But what exactly is a recession, and how do we know if we're in one? Well, the National Bureau of Economic Research defines a recession as a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and wholesale retail sales. This definition has been in place for the last 10 years. So those of us who remember the Great Recession, the definition has changed a bit. We no longer define a recession by just two consecutive quarters of a decline in growth. Here's the thing. In the United States, as in most of the world, we've seen recessions before. They're part of the natural cycle of the economy. This is the GDP since 1949 or so. This shows where the dips are. Every one of these is a recession. The bottom of one of these dips tends to be a recession. This was the Great Recession in 2008. You can see we don't typically have drops as big as that. However, look at this. We haven't had a recession since 2008. So we're 11 years from one. Let me show you this chart. I've shown you this before. This is the Dow over the course of 100 years. There are very few dips. It tends to go straight up since the 80s. That was the Great Depression over there. This is a recession. This is the recession of 2008, 2009. And you see it generally goes up. This is what we saw that tells us that even though there are recessions, markets tend to go up over time. Let me repeat that bit of good news for you. That is that history tells us markets go back up, but recessions are bigger than markets. So where does that leave us now? Well, prominent economists are sounding the alarm that we are already in a recession, or we're headed toward one, meaning we got to brush up on what that might look like this time around. Joining me now is Ken Rogoff. He's a Harvard University professor of public policy. He's an economist, and he's the author of This Time is Different, 8 Centuries of Financial Folly. Ken, you and I have been talking over the last few weeks. You are more alarmed about the potential of recession than you were when I talked to you a couple weeks ago. Why?
I am, Ali. In fact, I think a U.S. recession is almost baked in a cake at this point. And I think the reason is, as the virologist, the virus, it's become clearer that we need to put a pause on the economy. We need social distancing, stopping NBA games, potentially, closing off a lot of plane flights. There's some people in the economy who can work from home. I think they're less efficient, but there are an awful lot who can't. So even under this optimistic scenario that this passes in 6 weeks or 2 months, I think that alone could give us an impulse big enough to have a steeper, deep dip than we had in 2008.
Wow.
Look at what happened in China. We're doing the same thing. Look at what's going on in Italy. Things are still functioning, but it's very dramatic. And then, of course, if this turns out to be recurrent and we have to completely restructure everything, I don't know. But, markets are functioning. We were very strong coming into this, but this is a huge drop. We have pushed the pause button on the economy, and we don't know how long it's going to last.
Let's talk about what that looks like, because there are a lot of people who follow the stock market. Donald Trump does particularly closely. But in fact, that's only a part of it. About half of Americans are invested in the stock market. Obviously, when we have big sell-offs like we've seen, it affects more of us because many of us, including me, work for publicly traded companies. So the stock market affects us even if we aren't invested. But a recession is something broader and deeper than that.
Well, absolutely. It's jobs. So we had unemployment, which is right now below 4%, go up over 10%. Millions and millions of people lost their jobs or were working in jobs that they didn't like as much as what they had before. And I think what Congress has done is very good. I mean, people still need to get their paychecks. We have to try to protect firms, encourage them not to lay off workers. But this is putting a lot of stress on the system. I expect to see unemployment go up sharply, and that's, of course, what really hurts.
Ken, you said it might be deeper, but it doesn't have to last as long as the last recession. What do you mean by that?
Well, the last recession, there were profound problems in the financial system that took time to repair. And what's key here is that we try, as we move forward, of course, first and foremost, it's the health system, protecting people's health, investing in the health system. But we have to make sure that the healthy parts of the economy do not suffer long-term damage by protecting workers, protecting businesses. Normally in a recession, you showed a chart that you get a V-shaped recovery. You go down and you go up really fast. That did not happen in 2008. We went down, down, and then stayed down and very gradually came up. We have to avoid that. And I think it's going to require a very forceful response from the government. I would say massive fiscal stimulus, not just at the health sector, at the whole economy. $1 trillion, I wouldn't even blink right now at doing that. It's really going to be massive. I think that'll happen. The sooner it happens, the better.
Ken, good to see you. We will continue to have this conversation. Thank you, sir. Ken Rogoff is a Harvard University professor of public policy and economist, and the author of This Time is Different, 8 Centuries of Financial Folly.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.